Kathleen, Sophie, one of the first things I noticed when I looked at the ESPN FC top 10 is that there were markedly fewer Americans than there were last year. In last year's top 10, there were 3. In this year's top 10, just 1, Katarina Macario at number 6. Kathleen, I'll start with you. It's a big question, but a short one. Why?
I think it's a shift in power dynamics probably over the last year. You know, we've had the Olympics. We've seen how they performed. We all know that this team is like the team under Andonovski is changing. You know, it's not the old guard that we are so used to. You know, the Tobin Heaths, the Kristen Presses, the Alex Morgans. Alex Morgan's still doing great, but like the Megan Rapinos of the world, there are these new voices coming in. There's these new players coming in, and I mean, you take the example of Sam Ewis, who topped it last year. She's barely played in the time since because of injury. So I think it's a bit of a changing of the guard situation, and possibly we're still getting used to the newer, better players who are coming in. I also think with the way the seasons have worked out and with the amount of competition in Europe, sometimes I think benefits players. You know, in the US, you have the Challenge Cup and you have the main season, but you don't have that same sort of competition where they're playing teams from other countries or clubs from other countries, and you're getting that constant comparison between each other. And I think that's part of the reason why we don't see as many US players in it. And I think if people paid more attention to the sort of tournaments that are coming up, you know, with the clubs after the Euros, where it's the international ones and some of those US stars start to shine, they will be in there a little bit more. And heading into a World Cup season as well, I think that we're going to see a lot more from them. But I just think it's that shift in patterns and the not necessarily uncertainty in the team, but I suppose an uncertainty as to where everyone's best position is, what their best role is in that team. And for a lot of people who aren't regular NWSL watchers, that's kind of where you find out where your top players are.
And Sophie, the reality is, you know, we saw it at the Olympics as well. It was not the same U.S. performance that we saw in France in 2019. And surely that must factor into the vote as well.
Absolutely. I think we always like to look back at a major tournament. That's the easiest thing we can kind of grab onto when we sort of consider a previous 12 months. And the US were not good in Japan. I think that's the kind way of saying it. Mm. But you've got a new coach, you've got new systems, you've got, as I said, you know, younger players coming through. Your older players, so many of them have been pregnant, so they're not playing. And you know, you normally see like a Crystal Dunn somewhere on this list, you know, high up. She's not playing. She's just had a kid. It happens. So you've got the changing of the guard, as said, but you've got a nation in the US that just produces ridiculously good players. So you've got the young players, you've got the Trinity Rodmans, the Ashley Sanchez's, Ali and Germa coming through. We're seeing great players coming out of the draft this year. But it's also the league right now is quite up and down. So you say you'd think you'd look to say Washington Spirit, who did so well in the league last season, whereas they've had a horrible schedule, and their best players haven't really been on the song as much as you'd hope. So it's tricky getting a handle on where this team's at. But I think for a national team as well, there's a lot of uncertainty around there, as said, and it's just if they can find that harmony and if, you know, a Vlatko team will ever be like an Ellis team or a DeChico team, or, you know. But it keeps it interesting.
Yeah, Sophie, you mentioned pregnancy. Kathleen, you mentioned Alex Morgan. I mean, it's really quite an impressive return that she has. She's not in the top 10, but when you look at her recent NWSL form, you could certainly make the case that she should be in there, or at the very least knocking at the door.
100%, and I think if this list was to come out maybe 6 months down the line, she probably would be in there. She's been sensational. I think it's like her top scoring season so far, and we're not that far into it at this stage in her career. And to do that coming off the back of what is quite an intense experience is incredible. And I think one of the things, and we talked about this a little bit, I think last year, because at the stage that this came out, she had just had that time at Spurs, and we hadn't maybe seen as much from her as we thought we would, but I think she's gone about it the right way, in a similar way to someone like Hegerberg, where she's kind of built back up and she's given herself the time and the space to get her fitness back up, and now she's totally reaping the rewards for the fact that she did take that time, and She knows what she wants. And yeah, like if this was 6 months down the line, absolutely, she would be in this list, and she has earned it every second of the way, because the way she has performed this season has been probably up there with one of her really great seasons. And I think it's great to see that as well for a player of her stature. It just proves even more the status that she has in the game, that she can take any situation and turn it and make it her own. And I'm excited to see, especially if she manages to keep up this form, what she will do if she's picked for the World Cup squad next year, because that would be an incredible story.
There is only one American in the top 10. It's Katarina Macario at number 6, so we should probably give her some time. Sophie, really a remarkable season with Lyon.
Absolutely. She settled so quickly as well, which, we know from watching NWSL that it's not always the case with players when they come out of university, but she hit the ground running. Really just has done so much in that attack, for that attack. Looks great in playing in France. And I think there was maybe some sort of questions about how Vlatko was best utilising her with the US. She at 9, she at 10, she at false 9. What are you doing there? But yeah, if you can get what she's doing at Lyon and put that in the US, you're going to score goals. Obviously, out with an ACL at the minute, so a little bit questionable in terms of where she'll be by the time the World Cup rolls around. But I think she's had a phenomenal season, and for those who haven't watched that many Lyon games, she's been an absolute delight for them.
Yeah, and given her age, Kathleen, number 6, boy, sky's the limit.
It definitely is. And I think it's funny because if you look at a lot of the chat around in the US at the moment, they're probably looking at someone like Trinity Rodman and saying, well, she's doing phenomenally well for the age. And she is, and she absolutely deserves those plaudits. But I don't know if it's because Macario is over in Europe, she doesn't get that as much, or if there's something about the fact that, she did go straight over and didn't go through the draft process. But the sky is the limit. When you do something like an ACL, it is hard to say what trajectory your career is going to take, because we know that once you do it, it's very easy to do it again. So touch wood that doesn't happen to her and she's able to come back from this. So unfortunate how it happened to her as well, and literally the last game of the season where very little mattered. But for a player to have the maturity to step into a team like Lyon and impact it in the way she has. I mean, I remember having conversations with you about this a year and a half ago about how she was doing. And even then we were impressed, and we were like, okay, this is someone who, if she can keep this up, is going to be massive for the US in the coming years. And especially the fact that she's still so young and still has so much room to grow. And you can imagine what would happen if maybe she swapped clubs at some stage. And because we see that a lot more, there's less of that sticking with one club. When you do have that sort of like energy and ability, there's a lot more money floating around to attract you to different clubs and different players. And I think it, as well as like what Sophie said, like what is her best position? How can the US utilize her the best? That's going to be one of the most interesting things for me in the lead up to the World Cup.
Exciting times, no doubt. Just one US player then in the top 10. It is Katarina Macario at number 6.
Well, thank you very much for watching ESPN on YouTube. For more sports highlights and analysis, be sure to download the ESPN app. And for live streaming, premium content, and let's not forget as well, ESPN FC 7 days a week. Subscribe to ESPN Plus.